thank you very much for coming. One of my last videos showed the importance of making sure that you have pressed the right things and set the settings correctly. And why is that? Well, because I did what I think would have been a moderate to long video about my early days with the pet and how we ended up with a machine much like this, otherwise known as a Fat 40. And of course I had set up everything just so and pressed the time-lapse button rather than the video button. So all the great moments, all the stories, everything was lost. So I cannot recreate that because, you know, it's not possible. But I'll try to tell a few things. This is a 4032. At some point along the way, Commodore went from a 9-inch to a 12-inch monitor. And most of the machines that initially had this bigger monitor were 8032s. So you could have 80 columns, and I never have seen a small screen like a 9-inch monitor 80-column machine. And I'm not saying they don't exist, I've just never seen one. But I think the characters on such a tiny screen, when stretched out to 80, would have been too small. So anyway, they upped the size to 12 inches. And then I don't know why or how, but somebody said, hey, you know what, maybe we ought to have some of those machines with 40 columns. So the characters are definitely bigger. And I think a lot of the 4032s might have gone to classrooms, I think. You know what, looking back, I think the lab, or most of the labs that we had at my high school in Toronto, did have 4032s, I think. But I'm not sure. But anyway, back to the stories. You see, when we were first interested in getting a computer, it was after we had come in touch with them in the schools. And one of the first memories I have was somebody playing Space Invaders on such a machine. So that piqued the interest, little by little. Excuse me. And I don't remember the whole sequence of events. I'm not sure if we started going to TPUG meetings before or after we had sort of got a machine, but somehow we found out about them. We went to Northern Secondary School, my twin brother and I. Excuse me, my nose is bothering me. Anyway, and TPUG meetings were at Leaside High School, which was, well, if you know Toronto, we were pretty much around Eglinton and Mount Pleasant, and Leaside High School was Eglinton and Bayview, so this was not that far. Mind you, we didn't live right near the school, but still, this began our journey. And our journey also began by the way, machines back then, compared to now, like this is 40 years ago, so a machine like this, if it was $1,000, if it was, that was a lot more than what $1,000 is now, due to, you know, wages and inflation and all that. Anyway, there was a place called Richvale Telecommunications, and they rented machines. So we rented a small screen pet, and they had a deal where you could apply, I think it was 6 months of the rental price towards a machine. It might have been 3 months. Either way, it was a way to get your foot in the in the door or dip your toe in the water and then decide, is this really for me? Well, all along we had decided that we would rent and gather resources, and then when we had maxed out on what we could do with the rental, we would go in and buy. And so we did. Peter Smith was the man of Richvale Telecommunications, and it was quite a place. And they did turn out some pretty interesting products over the years. But anyway, so we went in, and he of course grumbled that the value of the small screen machines had gone way down in that time and whatever, but he did live up to his advertised policy, and we ended up with, indeed, a 4032 with a big screen, otherwise known as a Fat 40. And we were off to the races. So, we did all the typical sort of things. We went to club meetings, we looked at programs, and little by little, eventually, we got into bulletin board things, and eventually our 4032 ended up running what was called the Nortec BBS, which was actually a bulletin board that was run from our high school, but for a little while we ran it from home, and then of course that was in the summer, and it went back to the school in the fall. I think we only did that one summer. And it's funny, now modems are things that do Wi-Fi things and other things. Modem back then, you took your phone, you put it in there. It was also called an acoustic coupler. It was basically the phone system said, you cannot connect anything to the phone system. So acoustic couplers, you took your phone, you put it in, and then basically using the speakers and the microphone in the phone, it communicated. That's what it did. So there was no actual connection to the phone. Also, modems back then didn't answer the phone, so a special circuit had to be built to, and that, I suppose, was a direct connection to the phone system. Also, the older phones, you couldn't just, you left them in for the bulletin board, but maybe about once a week or so you'd take the phone out and give it a smack, because things to do with the microphone and the speaker in there would get kind of congested. In other words, the level of the carrier would go down. So shaking all that up would help. So we would do that. I remember sometimes you get a message from someone, hey, it's time to smack the phone around. And so we would. At some point, I don't remember exactly when, but at some point we actually did add in a little amplifier to actually amplify the the carrier level. So when someone phoned in, it would be stronger. So, anyway, that is how we ended up with a 4032. And I must say, as I have aged gracefully, the bigger screen and the bigger characters are not a bad thing. Now, this machine has only been here for a few days, and this all came about because I was contacted by a wonderful fellow. He said he saw an ad for one. I had seen the same ad and then did a little exploration and found out that there were actually two machines available, and so a deal was struck for both machines. This, I haven't had a chance to plug in the other one. I know it works fine. I know it. This one, the only thing that is really, there's the odd little ding, but it's really in fine shape. There's the sound of the typical PET keyboard. Apparently the other keyboard sounds a little different, so I'll have to look into that. There were different keyboards on the pet. This one is the typical, and it's pretty loud. And it's funny when I think of that, my mother, Doris Bradley, who ended up being the office manager for T-Pug for several years, she learned to type on manual typewriters, and she was very good at it and very fast. And with manual typewriters, you really had to whack the keys, like really whack the keys. So I remember lying in my bedroom trying to sleep, and she had something she wanted to do on this. And when she let loose her fingers, my God, I thought she was going to break everything. But you see, when using a mechanical typewriter, where the actual impression on the page is all dependent on how hard you hit the keys, you have to hit the keys hard, and she did. When she used one of these, it sounded like a machine gun barrage almost. Anyway, so here we have 4032. Now at some point soon, I'm going to find a 2031, I think, and plunk it down here and try and load up some things and have a look at it. But I cannot get bogged down completely on this. I have some other things I must look at. A fellow contacted me. He had an assortment of little bits of things, like a 64 and a 1541 too, that he says are not working, and I said I would have a look. And then there's there's always something. I've got stuff to look at. Also, I've got a Commodore 64 that I'm still baffled about. So baffled that I've been afraid to look at it. It came to me from the World of Commodore show, from a nice fellow who had got something to upgrade it, and then did, and then it didn't work, and then anyway, it's still not working. And it's one of the smaller boards, which I have, I think, 3 of to check with, kind of, but there's not that much in sockets. And also, after the World of Commodore, I fell ill, because I think a bunch of people did. Different things, you know. I think a lot of people went sort of all out, and then were exhausted. So anyway, things have kind of been slowed down. A lot of the videos you've seen for the last while have been things that I shot in December while trying to determine what was going on with all my Commodore 64s. It was indeed. So, here we have the 4032. There's one magical thing. There's one thing. There was one thing about these machines that was different than the 2001 with the small screen. I believe the 2001, I think, made this noise. Please be plugged in. Yes. I believe they made that noise. It's just you couldn't hear it. Because, there it is. Because there was no little speaker on the circuit board. And really, when I say little speaker, it's a tiny little thing. It's near the front of the circuit board. It's tiny, tiny. But there was an interface you could use to connect the pet up to an amplifier, because some of the games made little noises. For example, when I first saw Space Invaders on the pet, there was no noise, because there was no speaker. It was a small screen pet, and it wasn't hooked up to anything. By the way, with any interface or anything at all, be very careful. I just have visions of somehow, maybe many years ago, hearing stories of somehow somebody, it wasn't that the machine was on, but it was something to do with the CB2 sound, that they heard something. Anyway, just make sure everything is turned off before you connect anything to anything. And go from there. Anyway, inside of the, so right at the beginning of the program for Space Invaders, there's a little diagram that shows you a little circuit that you can hook up or put together off the user port and get access to whatever little sound there is. Now, of course, with a pad, oops, that's right, there is a difference with these. Wait for it. Ah. I just told it to print character string 7, and when you print character string 7, the little thing I'm doing is just print character string 7, semicolon, colon, go to 10. When you do that, you get the little chirp that would be on the startup. Over and 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 over. I did, and I have used that because, especially, I have a 4040. Oh dear. That was giving me trouble. It would be heating up, and so I did things to it. I changed chips and did other things that I thought were what was wrong, which none of it was what was wrong. But in order to test to see what was wrong, I would have it do things and leave it. And I wasn't going to sit there and watch, because it took quite a while sometimes for it to heat up and do its bad things. But I had the program set up that if there was an error, it would make that sound. It would also keep track of the time involved using TI $ or TI string, and it had a counter on how many times it had run through the program that I had written for it to test things. So when things went bad and I would hear that sound, I would know, uh-oh, something's happened here. And I could go in and I could see that it took half an hour, and it would run through the thing however many times. And you see, the whole thing about it was with this 4040, if I took it, and I had a fan inside of it, if I turned the fan on, once it had failed, within maybe 10 or 15 seconds, it would work again. So it's definitely heat related, but I still don't know why. Very strange. Very strange indeed. Anyway, so that's what character string 7 can be used for. That noise, that sound. There are other sounds on the pad, and I think I did an episode a while back. I know I did. There was a program that had a variety of sounds. They're pretty rudimentary compared to the SID chip and other things. Mind you, there is a T-Pug disc, I think it was called Z1, and it had some really cool music on it, but you needed another interface that I remember RTC did make, and we had one somewhere, and I don't remember if it was an RTC one or something we've done, but sometime I'm going to make one or find one. And it had more things than just the CB2 sound. It was called a petunia, because if you had this thing and you had this disc, you could load in things and all kinds of magical music would appear. And how did it work? I don't remember. Somewhere I will find the diagram. I think it was in an old either T-Pug magazine or Torpet. Well, the Torpet was the official T-Pug magazine, I think. Anyway, I would like to try it again and find it again and play some of the music. I remember the first time we did it, it was like, I think it was the song, maybe it was 76 Trombones, but you hook it all up, whatever, and then you play it, and nothing happens, you're like, well, what the heck? Anyway, there was a bit of a pause, so, you just crank up the volume, and then suddenly, it comes out, and it's loud. Anyway, yes. If anybody knows, or has a diagram for a petunia, let me know. Anyway, so, what I've talked about today is a little bit of what I talked about the other day. I did a cool thing, by the way, because I didn't have the machine sitting here. And if you see the time-lapse thing, you'll see at one point I go, because I didn't have the machine here, and then I said, well, I guess I got to get the machine, and then I did this whole cool thing where it was like, I don't have to like go get it, I can just say Shazam, and it will appear. And of course, with the magic of editing, it appeared. Of course, with the magic of time-lapse, it was all, I mean, if you watch it, you'll see me go, and then shortly after, like moments after, I'm still there, slightly moved, because you can never get it just right, and the machine is there. I also did look inside, but from this angle you really can't see much. I mean, I'm going to do more stuff. I have, oh by the way, behind me, over my head, over my shoulder, is a camera, and it's a camera, and I have a cable that kind of works where I can aim that camera over my shoulder at things and have it come up on the big monitor, which I have done once. So I think with a combination of things and a combination of ways, I will find out how, I experiment with how to use something like what I record with or other things to get a close-up view of interesting things that I'm doing. Ultimately, I think what I'd like to do when going at a machine, and I got to figure out how, I think I'm going to have this camera on a very tall tripod sitting next to me, because I don't really need to go in that direction, with it angled just so, looking down, so you can see what I'm doing with my hands up on the screen, I think. Or, I mean, I could put another camera on there that actually is a video camera, it's a camera and a video camera, and have a go. Anyway, I'm working on it, little by little. So, stay tuned for more 4032 things, including the other 4032. The characters are so nice, big, aren't they? So, stay tuned for more episodes. I'm just trying to think of anything and everything that I might have forgotten in my previous storytelling. And, I don't know, I know I also did, oh, maybe I'll do something here. Maybe I will say print. By the way, question mark, I don't know why, but question mark is a short form for print. Yeah, I can just print something and fill the screen. I did that before, I think. Oh yeah, oh, that's one of the other things about the later machines, is that the cursor would run. Let's see how this should do the Commodore thing and play the sound. Oh, right. The cursor on the first pets, you had to go along one at a time, one at a time, one at a time. And the cursor on these machines will move if you hold it down. There we have it. So, if you wanted to make a change, you can just hold it down. Oh. Hello, Penny. Penny, 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 Penny. Have you come to see me? Come here, Penny. Come here, Penny. Oh, there is Penny. Penny, have you come to do another CAT scan? Yes? No? It's funny, you know. Penny. Here, check out the pet. Penny, hardly ever. The CAT scan begins. Would hardly ever come around when I was filming in the other room, but Sheldon would, and now that I'm here, Penny is the star, and Sheldon has fallen into a supporting role. What do you think, Penny? Is the pet okay? Is it okay? Is it okay? I think it is. What do you think? It's funny, you know, on one of the old T-Pug magazines, no, it was definitely the tour pet. There was a picture of Jim Butterfield with his cat sitting on top of the monitor, looking down at him. I have never quite had that happen here. Mind you, I haven't had a pet sitting here long enough, but at some point, I would like to try and recreate that if one of these cats is agreeable, but it's hard to say if they will be agreeable. Right, Penny? Right? Oh. Yes, that corner's pretty good to scratch on, isn't it? Oh! I guess Penny's had enough. Bye, Penny. Oh. Oh, Penny's up on a chair. Okay, Penny. So, I think I have remembered many of the stories that I lost in the previous video. You know what? It'll never be as good. It'll never be the same. And ultimately, I probably did forget things, but I'll try. Hi, Penny. I'll try to remember what they were and work them into other things. So, at the moment, my next thing to do is have a look at some of the machines that I've been meaning to have a look at that I haven't had a look at because I really haven't been feeling very well. Very tired. Very tired. Fatigued would be the word. And, but keep looking at the 4032s, two of them, and get a 2031 here so I can load things and test things and find a way to show the screen better. I did at one point do some screen things, and what I found is, in that case, it was really good of me, really good, the best way to do it was to turn off all the lights and have whatever I was filming with zooming right in on the screen. But then, of course, it's hard to do that and get at the machine nicely, so I'll work on that. I shall. So, thank you for coming. Stay tuned. More exciting episodes will follow. There are many, many things to look at, including, let's see, 1541, 2, the Commodore 64, that seems to be dead. The Commodore 64 I spoke of from the world of Commodore, that I keep meaning to get to. More of the penultimate plus cartridge for the Big 20. Gee, at some point, and I keep meaning to do this, look, here's, oh, it's missing a little foot. Here's a tiny Commodore 64 thing that came out last Christmas that has games in it. But one thing I was still irked about is it only had an HDMI output, which of course in the modern world, that's understandable, I suppose. But I really would like to hook it up to the 1701 or the 1702, I would, but oh well. Anyway, much to do, much to look at, much to explore. So yes, stay tuned. Remember, character string 7. You won't get sick of that sound really fast, will you? Penny doesn't seem to like it. Hello, Penny. You've had enough of that sound? Very reasonable. Alright, enough. It is right now the middle of the night, and I think I will set this file to copy so I can get this up tomorrow or today, and then I'll go back to bed. And then I think I'll sneeze. Alright, so here we have, look, I'll tease you, look. Oh, hello. Why is this not opening? Oh, maybe it's up against something in the back here. Oh, it's up again, never mind. We'll look inside this 4032 another time. Until we meet again.